designers, they're not easy to find. And if you do find them, they're usually in already specialized companies that, because there are not many of them. And if you find someone who knows how to design.
Welcome to the first episode of the podcast, Struggling to Find. This podcast focuses on talking with guests who are CEOs, hiring managers, basically anyone who's responsible in growing a company or department by finding more people to join their company. The purpose of the podcast is to openly talk about the struggles in finding the right talent and the positions that are still open and the guest is not able to find the right people for them. By openly talking about these struggles, you can start to understand the kind of talent demand that is out there, and you can be equipped with that knowledge to be the supply for that demand, making your life easier in finding the right job for you that is demanded worldwide or just for that company that the guest is coming from. My guest today is Khalid AlAwadhi. He is the CEO and founder of Remal IoT, an IoT company based in Dubai, UAE. And I know he's the perfect person to be the first guest of this podcast. I hope you enjoy this episode. Well, hello, Khalid. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Ahmed.
Khalid, my first question is, so you're the founder of Rimal IoT. Can you tell me, what is Rimal IoT? What do you do? And while we're at it, I do have a follow-up question, which is, why would anyone go to your company versus your competitors? But let's start with the introductions.
Sure. First of all, السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. معكم خالد منصور العوضي. I'm the founder of Remal IoT. Just a brief about Remal IoT. I was studying in the US, where I met you at CU Boulder. And then I did my bachelor's there in electrical and computer engineering, and then continued on with my master's, also in electrical engineering in the field of embedded systems and IoT. And I loved the ability of me writing code and seeing things happen in real life. Typing something and seeing an LED blink. That was a pivotal moment. And many instructors were amazing at CU, especially Alex Fosdick. I don't know if you'll see this, but anyway, he was amazing. He really showed me what embedded systems are. During my master's, I was working on a startup or an idea of a startup where, I want to create a device that detects insects within palm trees. My grandfather was talking to me on the phone. He told me, "Allah Khalid, I have an issue with just having discussions. There is this insect that was, that's invasive and been eating the palm trees. What it does, it eats the palm tree from the middle, and before you know it, the tree falls down, and then it spreads around, and you don't know. You have to have a worker actually walking around the farm and listening to the trees. يسمونه سوست النخل, or the red palm weevil. So I was working with a friend of mine. Very initial ideas of what's something we could do. When I returned home in early 2020, I realized, I don't have the parts I need. I don't have the components I need. I don't have the skilled individuals I need to help me build this thing. Back in the US, if you remember, Ahmed, there were many good companies there that I can just directly go to, buy parts from. Many people already know how to design PCBs, and PCBs are the electrical boards they are in everything found all around us. People can design these things. Software was really taught. And when I say software, it's not high-level development. It's more like, it's called low-level or firmware development, where people write code for low-level machines, microwaves, ovens, fire alarm sensors, things that you don't really think of as software, but they do have a lot of fundamental software within them. And there are many, many things, but then these are very basic examples. So I found that gap in the market. And then I thought, you know what, instead of me coming back home with the knowledge I have of creating PCBs and writing low-level firmware, let me take a step back and build the foundation to educate others, individuals and entities, on how to program and then eventually build their own solutions. That's where the idea for IoT started. It started from my bedroom, a tiny office where I actually started building my. So it was initially just for fun. I built my first board, which was called Shabaka, and it's still being used. It's still developed, alhamdulillah, to this day. But the initial version was built again, in my bedroom. On the website, you'll find actually the step-by-step process of how you can assemble your PCB using very basic tools. I have a skillet, mal طبخ mal جمعية, some sand from the desert, and then you just need to get the actual ICs. You put them on the sand. The PCB on the sand. You heat the skillet up. It reflows, and it's a process. But the point is, you can actually create high-end PCBs from your bedroom. You don't need any specialized machinery to actually make it. So when the first board I made worked, I was like, okay, I can actually make this here. What else can I do? And then we had, in the UAE, we have the mandatory national service. So during national service, I had a lot of time to think. You're in the camp in the desert for you're in there for 3 months. You can leave on weekends, but we only left once because of COVID. And I had my notebook, and I could write things down. And there is where I actually first chose the name Remal IoT. This was on my notebook, I think number 37 of different names. Okay, what do I call this thing? And then one of my boards was actually designed in the camp itself. Like I actually did the schematic on paper. And when I left camp, I actually built that board, it's called the Atlas board. So it was initially a passion thing. Then it started making things, and eventually, alhamdulillah, Ramal. At this current point, still a startup, um, but that inshallah will change very soon. So alhamdulillah, at Ramal we design and build these development boards. So we sell. Actually, I have one here. We design and build these circuit boards, and at first sight it might seem like, what does this do? This can actually do a lot of things, meaning you plug this into your laptop and you program it. Um, People have used these in artworks to control different art installations. Alhamdulillah, there's an event in the UAE in Dubai called Sikka, which has been now for the last 2 years has been using these by artists there. And then we also use it in smart home automation. So to actually open garages and things, because it has a Wi-Fi chip on it. It's also used for students to educate them on how to program and build things. It's also used in space, meaning this was used to actually translate commands from the laptop to another device, to an antenna, and then back from the antenna, translate to the laptop. So it's a very versatile thing, and it's called development board. There are many of it in the market, meaning it's like a car. There are many car brands in the market, but your question was what distinguishes your device from the others in the market. Well, alhamdulillah, I could say 100%, since every single piece of this was designed by us. Every single part, every single line that you see here was made by us. We know exactly what parts are on this. We know exactly how much current it can handle. We know exactly, what it can and can't do, and we can modify and adjust as we need, as we see fit. So we have a line currently of three products. We have Shabaka. I wish I could have them right now, but it's in my bag. Anyway, Nabd and then Atlas. And they're all different development boards with different features. This is the most powerful one. Then you have Atlas, which has more components on it, an SD card, lights, buttons, an area to build on, and then Nabd, which is very simple and basic. If you know the Arduino Uno, it's the exact same layout, but we improved upon it, meaning we use USB-C, better routing, just overall better power handling. So, what makes us better is we are established in the UAE, alhamdulillah. We design our hardware, meaning we can customize it based on the consumer needs. We can revise it as needed. We are not limited by the supply in the market, meaning some people or some schools, universities, institutions, engineers, they struggle to find good Arduino boards. Sometimes you go and buy the cheap ones. You can find many cheap boards, but they don't work, and you keep buying and buying and buying because just a little bit, and some chip gets burned, and then you basically you lose that asset. You have to buy more. We focus on being reliable, high quality, and providing direct support to people that that use our hardware. So, alhamdulillah, one last comment is we had a workshop, and a student came to our workshop. He learned how to use our board. He then went on, he's a computer science major. He then went on to create his own startup, which was a greenhouse called Daima. And that greenhouse was powered by our board, the Atlas board, and it won first place at a separate competition. And that's what we love to see. Alhamdulillah, it's fadl min Allah, and it's his own personal effort. But it's nice to see that our hardware inspired someone to go make his own startup and then build his own smart greenhouse, and he's still working on it, which is very nice to see, alhamdulillah. That's Ramal IoT. We want to educate, and then we also work with industry clients such as Dubai Police, Emirates Global Aluminum, to name a few big names, to create custom solutions for them or provide custom workshops for their employees or students. And yeah, that is Ramal in a nutshell.
Khalid, I'm genuinely, because I know you, I'm not surprised that you managed to do all of this. Because what I recall during our time at CU Boulder, that you spend a lot of your free time tweaking with different hardware, trying to program them, trying to solve different problems using different boards. And I always noticed the unique thing about you is your curiosity and your love for hands-on work. And I think one advantage that you have, and as a result, Remal IoT has as well, is that the hands-on work is done locally rather than being outsourced. And I think that makes you stand out because one thing that I keep on hearing is that people are bothered, or they want to see the hands-on work in front of them, whether it's in UAE with UAE companies and different countries as well. And I believe that goes back to your days at CU Boulder, and now you've also grown Remal IoT to do the same. With that being said, I assume it's hard to find that technical experience that you need to, that your people or your employees would have in your company. That being said, who are you struggling to find for Rimal IoT, or who are you struggling to hire for roles at Rimal IoT?
At Ramal, we hire, alhamdulillah, or yeah, we hire interns, throughout their summer courses. And last time we had a batch of 5 interns. One of them is actually now working at Ramal. Um, when you have interns, and why do I focus on interns now? Because interns are eventually people that showed interest in your company, and then they are the most likely to join your company afterwards. So I invested my time in the interns. Some of them were upfront. They told me, "Wallah, Khalid, listen, we were doing our internship, but we just have to graduate," which was completely fine because at least during the interviews they showed they have the skill, they have the ethics, which was completely fine. Others were more open that we want to work harder, they want to stay at Ramal, and they did, alhamdulillah. Now, what I look for in an intern, plus as in this translates also to an employee. um, Again, speaking not at a smaller scale, at a startup. At a startup, you need somebody who can manage different tasks given to them. Meaning, Anna as Khalid, I do at least initially, the design, the building, the website, the social media, the delivery, actual delivery of these boards. I did that, and I still do sometimes. So everything is done by me, and I don't have anyone else to rely on, at least in the early days. Now, alhamdulillah, I have my team that I can give them tasks and they can manage. But my point is, at a startup, since you're a small team, you really have to be willing to do different tasks, different things. And startups, they they have a big future. However, they also have a big chance of failure. So, to anyone when I want to find someone, I want to find someone who's passionate, who's motivated, not just by money, because money is some as a startup, you don't have much of that. But you need dedicated people that can invest time and you can educate them for them to learn. And then I tell my employees, bro, inshallah, after whatever you learn, yes, I go pro في الانترفيw. I tell them, whatever you learn here, go make your own startup. I'm more than happy to see that, you doing that. And I even in the contract on purpose, I don't add anything about not doing your own startup in the same field, because go ahead and do it. We severely lack the hardware skills in our region, unfortunately. And what I do is not it's not special. Meaning, uh, I mean, it is a unique, or it's a limited, I guess, at a limited scale or market. I know my customers are not general consumers. They're specialist engineers, researchers, hobbyists, people that actually like to build stuff. Not general market, but the skills that we need, the PCB design, the low level firmware, is not being taught. I mean, so I've done interviews for many university students across different universities. They teach them the very basics of what you could do. But I really wish, my advice to anyone who's looking for a job or a student wants to go into the field of hardware. Arduino is great. I obviously use the Arduino language. But to actually grasp the full depth, I would highly suggest students that go into this field to learn uh, C++. But if you learn the foundational languages, which is C++, Arduino will be the same thing. Arduino is just a layer over C++. It is C++. But learning the foundation will prove instrumental in your career. And if you don't want to go too deep into low level C and these things, learning Arduino and then Python is also excellent. Python, I love that language. It's applicable in so many areas, from mashallah your background in AI to data scientists in other fields, to embedded systems. This runs Python, MicroPython. So it's very applicable. So yeah, to summarize all this, when I hire someone, I look for someone who's motivated, who's interested, who is willing to learn, who can take their own initiative. Because you're already too busy at a startup, you want people to take their own initiative and do things, and inshallah grow the company with you. And as for technical skills, uh, you can self-learn. You don't need specialized courses. Just go to YouTube. I love open source software. Go to YouTube, do it on your own. I use KiCad to design my PCBs. Software is all in C or Arduino, which is again open source, and C is just a language. And then you could just make projects. You don't need to listen to a lecture for 4 hours. Make something. You will learn way more than just watching a video or something. So that's my advice. Tawad.
And what's the hardest skill to come by in the local labor
Uh,
market?
Hardware designers, PCB hardware designers, they're not easy to find. And if you do find them, they're usually in already specialized companies that, because there are not many of them. And if you find someone who knows how to design good PCBs, I think that's important. However, I will not sugarcoat things, meaning, what if you are a very good PCB designer? Where will you work? That's another question. Um, these specialized companies, they will hire you, but general many companies don't need specialized PCB designers. However, I think it's extremely valuable skill to know. And with PCB design, if you learn how to code, you can build whatever. You can design something, you can program it to do whatever, and you can actually make this into its own product. That's what I love about embedded systems, the hardware and software combination.
What's the what's your company's size currently? How many employees do you have?
So far, Ahmed, we are three. We are three. I know it's very small. As I said, it's a startup. We had people before, so we were a total previously six. Oh, actually, sorry, seven with interns. But then they had to go back to school. They still contact me to join Ramal. I kept Ramal small on purpose for now, because I really wanted to focus on what we have. And Alhamdulillah, this is still early on, but we are in talks with an international partner that we might be acquired and grow our skills much greatly. This is something happening right now. That's why I, on purpose, stopped hiring. I froze things just to figure out with this new partner, inshallah, how things will scale up. Because Ramal, before and after this, bi'idhnillah, will not be a startup anymore. We will, inshallah, be a much larger scale. Yeah, yeah, that's the thing. Making connections is very important. So, alhamdulillah, but the point is, if you have a startup that's small or big, uh, just doing the startup, just meeting people as you were doing, is opens so many doors that just you having a regular job 9 to 5 and then going back home, you will not get. My advice: if you want to make something, do it. Go ahead. لأن a job is great, but if you really aspire for more and want to keep meeting people, it's not about the money. Make your own startup.
And while you're trying to grow the company and hire people, or let's say find interns, um, I'm sure you went through a series of interviews. What was the best interview you've ever had to sit through, or that you conducted?
Wallah, best interview, mashallah. Many of the interns were, and the other employees, they were really good. I'm trying to think. So the best interviews to me were where somebody comes in, they're direct, they're honest about what they want. They show me things. I love seeing things. Like, I was talking to a student, and during his interview, told him, like, he said, I did this, and show me. So he got his laptop and he's showing me things that he did. So that really, aside from anything that's written on paper, if you can show me what you did, that really, excites me more than just reading what you did. So usually the best interviews are where somebody is confident, they show their projects. I don't like to take interviews too seriously, meaning, you can just talk, we're normal humans. And yeah, that's the best kinds of interviews, where people just discuss things and they're honest about what they want and their goals and what they expect out of. I tell them from the beginning, Ramal is a small startup. Don't expect to enter a company where there is a set schedule for interns. It's just a running machine. Week one, two, three, four, five. مع السلامة. No. You will be hands on. You will do stuff. and one of the interns actually wrote some software for our temperature sensor here, and that software is still being used. So he left his mark at the company, and it's being used across all our devices, which is nice. So yeah, that's my the thing about interviews.
And what about the most, I don't know, the worst experiences when it comes to conducting interviews, or the worst experience
The
that a
so
listener can listen to your answer and understand that, oh, okay, I should not have done that, or I should not do that if I would have an interview tomorrow.
so one thing at interviews now, if you join an interview and you come in, you don't know about the company. I mean, when I interview people, I don't ask them all the specifics of Ramal, but what our development boards, what are they, what do you expect out of this, and if they seem like they don't even know what they're applying for, that's a big red flag to me. And if somebody in the first interview asks, do you guys pay or not or whatever about money, it's like, for me at a startup, this is a red flag, because I can barely sustain myself, and then I had to consider paying you more. I mean, you could find other opportunities, but if you ask me from the beginning, that's not something that it's a red flag to me. So join the interview, be genuine, keep the I mean, you could ask if it's an internship, if it's paid or not, that's completely fine. But if you come in and the next question or the third question is like, so how much do you pay me? Let me understand what you want, what's your goals, what your technical skills are, then we can let's discuss it. But if you don't know the company and it's all financials, then I don't see a fit.
How, okay, so let's say you have an interview with a potential candidate for an internship. What would be an acceptable way from your position, or let's say in a way that you would, understand that this candidate is definitely passionate and they do have a financial concern that they would like to address? What would be a way to address to address that question in a way that wins you over?
Exactly. So if somebody discuss, we have an interview, we discuss technical things, we discuss everything, and خلاص يعني the main thing is I know the personality and technical skills. And then at the end, or like nearing the end discussions, because I do that sometimes as well. Before, when I was applying for jobs, okay, me personally, I don't ask. I haven't interviewed at startups, but usually at companies, I never ask the people that interview me money questions, because I know eventually I'll speak to HR people. HR people, then I can discuss these things with them. So if you're applying for a regular sized company, a big company, don't ask them money questions. Talk to the HR people, because the guys in front of you are probably just managers or engineers that have no influence on the actual pay. As far as I know, it's mainly the HR people. But in case that things are going well, you can just say, well, what is the expected package? What's something at the end, more than fine. Something at the end is more than fine, but not the first three questions that you ask. It shows no interest in the company. It just shows interest in, you just want to find something that pays, which is, again, as a startup, you need somebody who loves what they're doing, who's passionate, who's willing to grow and learn. I was going to say something else, so I forgot. Anyway, it's yeah.
But let me understand this correctly. So are those who had that sorry, those who brought up that question during an interview, did they like coming into the interview and jumped into the, let's say, the financial question, the money question too quickly, like the first 15 minutes?
So in my case, during these interviews, alhamdulillah, that didn't happen. That did happen, where they ask, just it was these because the most recent ones were for internships. They were asking me, also, I don't think they even asked most of the students, is this internship paid or not? I told them it's paid, because I feel like, if you're coming and doing work, it should be paid. Many companies don't pay, by the way. So alhamdulillah, I did provide them something. But here, what I remember vividly is I was at a career fair, and then like two or three people over many, like it's not the majority, just the minority. They come to me, they're like, this is my CV. This second or third question is, so how much is your pay? I don't know you. Like you're just asking me for the pay just now. So, but aside from the pay itself, uh, that's one thing that I would avoid bring up too early in discussions. بس هذا خلي على صوب. Like actually, what's more important is you present yourself as somebody who is passionate, who is technical, and you can actually explain. Like if I see your CV and I ask you questions, like that's it. When I ask you questions, things like that, you have to be prepared to answer them. And one thing as well, once before I do the interviews, I review CVs. If I see the CV is has typos, uh, obviously bad formatting, things all over the place. To be honest, most of the time I don't do the interview because I was on both sides, applying and the hiring. Um, if your CV shows me a lack of care, that already gives me a huge red flag that if you don't even care enough about your CV, why would they even interview you? Like I had a CV that says, hi, or the initial statement, it was something about my name is insert name here, and then continues on. I was so surprised. Like, if you don't even look at your CV, you expect me to give up my time and interview for 15, 30 minutes? It won't happen.
True,
So make
true.
sure your CVs are clean, are organized, no typos. It won't take you much. Organize them. That's very important.
Because I think that's the first indicator about the candidate is the thing that
True.
is an extension of them. If you don't put care into that, it may reflect badly on you, and as a result, because
It
you
does.
might end up
It does.
have if you end up having 15 interviews, you want to make sure that those 15 interviews are worth having,
Because
um,
yeah, I get like 60 CVs, so I have to summarize them down and then do the interview. So if somebody has a bright CV, I will put them over your CV because your CV doesn't show me that you actually care enough to put in the effort.
exactly, exactly. And back to the money question as well, my opinion on this matter would be, first get your foot inside the door, then start talking about the money, right? About the Or just bring up that question. If you are not a fit to the company and you start off just talking about money, it shows that your priority is just that. And whereas from the company's point of view is that we want individuals who are self-driven, who love to work on these problems. And obviously once we align on those matters, we will definitely think about financially compensating them, which goes back to your point, which
Exactly.
is a lot of the internships are not paid. I want to pay my interns because if you work, you deserve to be paid. But you just want to make sure that it's the right candidate who's fit to your company. And somebody who just immediately talks about money does not give you an indicator
Exactly.
whether they are fit to the company or not.
Yes. Yeah,
If
I
you
agree.
could, sorry, go ahead, Khalid.
كمل كمل معلش.
My last question, which will conclude this interview, would be: if you could hire one candidate for any role in your company, what would that role be, and who would that candidate be in terms of combination of skills? Right now, if you could hire anyone.
Wallah, directly. So designing these. So I would love to have somebody who is. You mentioned these keywords when we were having our discussion previously, which is a lead or a manager. I would say a lead, just as a somebody who can be in charge of designing hardware, managing a team of other engineers, um, teaching them as well the skills, which I try my best to do, but then I also have other things to focus on. But if I have somebody who's technical, uh, communication. I mean, one thing again in my interviews, what I do is I judge someone okay on technical, but I also have other criteria just on teamwork, their personality, how they speak. That is also very important. Some people, like, I chose them even though technically they're not good. I mean, not good, but technically they're not up to the standard of the others. But because socially they're really good, I chose them because that really
Mhm.
shows they're willing to learn and they can speak. They could, you can have them within a team, no issues. Because sometimes you have somebody who's not a team player, that's an issue. Anyway, so I would get someone who is technical, who has social skills, and can teach as well as manage others. That's someone I need currently in the technical aspect of Roman. So that would be my ideal candidate. Technical and social are very important.
I agree. I agree, and I think across different markets and different regions as well, it seems like that's a huge need. The combination of technical and non-technical skills seems to
You
be
were
very
saying that as
rare.
well. Yeah,
Yes, yes,
yeah, it
yes,
is
yes.
fine.
Exactly, exactly. With that being said, Khalid, again, thank you for your time, thank you for your responses. I genuinely found it to be very interesting. Hopefully, to the listeners as well. Thank you, Khalid.
مشكور مشكور حد